Hello everyone, this is Bhavik Chokshi here and I hope you guys are doing great. For our November 2022 students, I really hope your exams are going great. Your Group 1 exams, your SCMP of Group 2, hopefully all of them have gone great. Today's video is about the elective paper, specifically GFRS paper 6E. Now what I've tried to do over here is map out, this might appear really small in your screen. We'll share the PDF on the Telegram channel. You can refer that and zoom in as well. What we have done is exam wise, we have kind of mapped out the topics from which each of these questions have come, MCQs, main questions, and this is for November 19 all the way up to May 2022 exams. Before that, you had a 50-mark weightage and hence the pattern was slightly different. So let's say from November 19 to May 2022, we have tried to map out the topics from which questions have come so that we get a sense of what the institute really likes and what they are asking and what you can focus on, especially in this 1.5 days of your preparation. We can even kind of discuss the broad 1.5 day strategy as well. But focusing specifically on key trends, key topics where you need to kind of focus a little more on. So these are the topics. Again, if you see, we have what we mentioned is case study number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are 5 cases, and in each of them, the first 5 questions, typically of 2 marks each, are MCQs. So that will be of 2 marks each, and then there are descriptive questions for the remaining 3, 4, or 5, depending on how many questions the institute asks. So over here, we have given the topic numbers. We have named it in the form of Ind AS. Some of these questions were IFRS, but at this stage you would be aware that IFRS broadly resembles Ind AS only. Very few questions from US GAAP, etc. But we'll kind of discuss that. So hopefully you should have a better perspective. So first of all, in terms of trends, financial instruments over here largely surpasses every other topic in terms of the exam weightage, and you will easily expect around 20 to 25 marks of weightage distributed across various case studies. So this is one topic where you will invest a majority of your time. You will get 20 to 25 marks of weightage extensively tested in each and every paper all the way up to May 2022. Now, in terms of the coverage, what all is asked in financial instruments? Now, largely the importance remains similar to FR, where you have topics like compound financial instruments, which are institute favorites. But here we go into a little more detail as well. You are not necessarily required to always prepare that same split accounting and amortized cost table. You might, along with compound financial instruments, have specific effective interest rate workings for loans which are at off-market transactions or special cases of instruments. So you need to be well versed with the amortized cost workings and the split accounting in case of compound financial instruments. But one thing which is particularly important, and this has been seen even in the recent exams for GFRS, is hedge accounting. Now, hedge accounting you don't need to kind of be really scared of. You should refer the institute study material because they have asked you a fair bit of questions about hedge accounting. It is not that the entire cases and cases on hedge accounting only, but it has regularly come because 25 marks is split between various small 2 and 5 mark questions. But I would want you to focus on hedge accounting. Like in FR, we don't focus as much on hedge accounting. We have a separate video on a couple of questions, I think, of hedge accounting, which have even come in the FR, MTP, etc. But in GFRS, at least the recent papers have a fair bit of weightage on hedge accounting, so you should kind of refer that as well. And guarantees, I think guarantees even came in the financial reporting paper, but guarantees also have a fair bit of share. So just try to refer these topics properly. Again, you do have smaller cases pertaining to the definition of financial assets and financial liabilities, the settlement in own equity instruments. So small 2 mark MCQs have also come on the definition of financial assets and liabilities as well. So these are the 4 crucial areas which I would say that you focus on financial instruments. But nevertheless, the entire chapter is something which is very, very, very important and easily the most extensively asked topic. So you can even look at the pattern that we have shared. I'll just share this on Telegram channel as well. So you understand that 109, I've not written 32, 109, 107. I've kind of kept it at 109 for your easy spotting. Is extensively asked. Now, apart from financial instruments, which is the institute's darling, what are the other topics? Now, in order of their coverage, institute loves asking you question about IFRS 15 or Ind AS 115. A lot of small questions, detailed questions, complex questions on 115 have also come. So this is a second area where you have to be very clear. Questions will involve identifying performance obligations, determining the timing of revenue, when should it be recognized, splitting of the transaction price in an appropriate manner. So this is something which you should focus on properly. Then comes 116. Now 116 is not as extensively tested as 115, to be honest. So 109 comes first, then comes 115, and then is 116. Whenever it has come, it has been largely scoring. So questions can involve identification over here of whether there is a lease or not. Like in FR, you usually directly have the accounting part only. So you directly do the accounting. In your exams, I mean, we have studied the entire lease, but in your exams, you largely focus on questions which involve numbers. But in GFRS, along with that, you also have questions where you have to identify whether there's a lease or not. So if there's a power purchase arrangement, if there's a hidden lease or not. So that part of your syllabus also needs due attention. Apart from that, please do focus on lease modifications and remeasurements. Like in financial reporting, even this continues to be important in your GFRS paper. 103 is the next most tested topic. This is on business combination, and when I say business combination, we kind of see reverse acquisition and those big professional dynamic type of questions in front of us. Thankfully, in your GFRS, you don't have as big questions that have come, at least consistently. Even if they've come, they're extremely rare. So largely the business combination questions involve small cases, scenarios. Something like goodwill calculation has come extensively. So a 2-mark question involving the calculation of goodwill, or the non-controlling interest using the fair value method, proportionate net assets method. So focus on those small areas, smaller issues which involve calculation of purchase consideration. Let us say if there is a contingent consideration, or issues like when you're taking over net assets and there are contingent liabilities, how will that get accounted? So be mindful of that. Institute loves asking you the deferred tax impact at the stage of business combination. So when you are studying business combination, goodwill, NCI, etc., do adequate practice of questions where there is a deferred tax impact involved as well. Then comes the next standard, Ind AS 12, which is on deferred taxes. Institute asks you this question as a supplemental question to a lot of transactions. So there will be a big business combination adjustment, and then they would say that what will be the deferred tax impact, or there would be certain other let us say adjustments involving disallowances, etc., and then they would ask you the deferred tax impact, carry forward losses, MAT, all of these. So deferred tax Ind AS 12 is something which you should focus on. Now, the next problematic area is Ind AS 101. Now, this is a fairly recent trend where Institute has been focusing, let us say, out of 5 cases, one of the cases will have extensive transition adjustments. Now, in financial reporting as well, we have done transition. Now, this is a standard which kind of irritates and baffles a few. So, you would have done it, but with a little bit of resistance maybe. So, you will do Ind AS 101. There is likely to be a case which has an extensive transition focus. But what I would like you to do is, you can refer the study material once. When I say refer, you don't need to kind of mug up everything or remember everything. You need to, you kind of see the institute study material. You would have done our notes or whatever professor's notes that you have for your financial reporting / GFRS. But refer the institute material, because there are so many transition adjustments, and because in financial reporting, not every adjustment is as important. We would have focused on the crucial adjustments. Now, it is because it is an open book exam, it is very crucial that you know that something like this exists. So just in case if you have to attempt the transition question, you should be aware that, okay, if there is a derecognition of a financial liability or a decommissioning liability, where is it in the study material? And that's it. I mean, if you see that, you can just quickly flip over and refer that. So be comfortable. Obviously do Ind AS 101 like you have done in financial reporting, but for the other topics as well, be aware of the placement of transition items in your study material. What is there, what is not. So that is important. Ind AS 28, Institute loves asking you at least a question about equity method. So it is quite likely that you will get a question somewhere which is asking you to find, let us say, the carrying value of investment in your associate. So a small question on that is almost always seen. So focus on that. Share-based payment, again, a small question on that will be seen in your paper. Maybe they like asking you about SARs or options where there is a cash alternative. So please do study Index 102. Again, there have been questions where you need to identify the grant date, your vesting conditions, etc. So refer that, not something which is very difficult, but 102 is fairly scoring. A lot of questions have also come on government grants, Index 20. So if you see the last 2 or 3 attempts, they have kind of regularly asked questions about government grants as well. Again, they're not as extensive as 109 or 115 or even 103, but you have a fair bit of government grants and provisions, contingent liabilities, etc. Specifically questions involving, let us say, if there's a warranty, what will be the expense, what will be, if there's a lawsuit, should you create a provision, should there be a contingent liability, look at the adjusting events, etc. So these are broadly the important topics. Also, I would want you to read, I mean, I've not written it over here, but I would want you to read Index 8 properly, which is for errors as well as changes in accounting policies and estimates. A lot of questions have come where they've kind of just asked you generally that whether the effect should be retrospective, prospective, whether it's an error, whether a third balance sheet is required. So refer Index 8 as well. Now, I don't by any means mean to tell you that you just refer these topics. It's an open book exam. A lot of things are going to be covered, like in PP, Index 16, Index 38. A lot of questions that we have seen involve specific adjustments on MCQs on you having to determine the initial cost. Now, Institute also loves asking you about decommissioning and site restoration. In intangibles, about amortization, about research and development. So you refer that, but again, you will not see an entire paper or a question or a case filled with that. But here, these are appearing in almost every paper, and hence these are the important ones. Impairment, EPS, 108, all of these, they would come, but probably in the later tier. These are the topics where your core focus should lie. Within this as well, we have given the important topics, like in 115, we have seen various questions involving that service concessions, the timing of revenue, lease modifications, goodwill and NCI working is very important. Along with that, deferred tax impact. The equity method has come in almost every paper. Grants with lower rate of interest, so there's a financial instruments impact, lawsuit and warranty provisions, etc. For 101, use the open book for special adjustments. Now, in FR, you almost always have one question which involves preparing the full consolidated balance sheet using the full consolidation method. But in GFRS, it is extremely rare. And if a full question, 25-mark question, ends up coming, typically you will always have a 10-mark MCQs, but theoretically, just probably weigh your pros and cons and see if you can attempt it the last, because if it's a full question, it might be complex, and it is maybe it's better to attempt questions which are smaller, in the sense that 4 marks, 6 marks, 5 marks, 3 marks, which are much more scoring, and which kind of, like we say in SFM, they diversify your risk. Here you are putting everything, 15 marks into one question, so maybe you can do it later, but I've seen this to be extremely, extremely rare. We have not got a full consolidation question in all of these attempts. So if it comes, it's rare, but you don't need to kind of focus a lot. So when you're referring FR, those full consolidation questions of chain holding and pre-acquisition dividend, fair value adjustments, those adjustments per se might be relevant for a smaller question, but the full consolidation process, etc., is relatively rare. Most questions have you identifying control, so that part of the standard which is largely ignored in FR, which is the starting part, where you have to determine when the control exists, your ability to direct the relevant activities, variable interest, etc. So all of this is considered to be a little more important in GFRS, where small cases have invariably popped up on an accountant being baffled on whether there is control or not in a special case. So just focus on that as well when you're studying Index 110. Now, an issue which kind of haunts at the back of your mind is generally US GAAP. So when you're looking at US GAAP for a GFRS paper, you can go to the Institute website and download the latest US GAAP IFRS index comparison as well, and be aware of what are the topics, where is it lying. Typically in my analysis, in the pass, you have at max a 2 to 5 mark MCQ or a question which is lying somewhere once in your case for US GAAP. I've not seen one full case ever, or one full 10 mark or a 6 mark question ever on US GAAP, at least till now. So that ways, you don't need to spend a lot of time studying US GAAP even in these last 1.5 days, but you need to spend some time to understand that where are the headings. Let us say if it is impairment, what are the main headings in impairment? So if there's a US GAAP case on impairment or on deferred tax or on let us say PP, you should be aware that okay, I've seen this over here, let me go through and flip through in the main exam, refer it and accordingly solve. So you don't need to spend a lot of time behind US GAAP over here. Yes, the IFRS and Ind AS carve-outs, as you call, you can refer. Again, there has been one question in the past where you have been asked to differentiate between AS, that is IGAP, and Ind AS/IFRS as well. So again, sir, do we need to study AS? No. When you take, let us say, your institute study material, so I recommend you refer. I mean, it will be a big baggage for you to carry, but I mean, there's no harm in that. The more the books that you have, the more safer you are. So there would be 4 institute modules, and behind each study material you have a difference between IGAP, that is AS, and Ind AS. So you can refer to that difference in case a question pops up, and it has popped up just once, but in case it comes, you would be well prepared with that. So these are the key trends in terms of the exam pattern or weightage. If you are interested, I'll share this PDF as well on Telegram, and you can refer that. Along with that, I'll also share a recent May 2022 study material link index as well for your reference, so you can refer that index for the page numbers as well. So this takes care of your important topics that you should focus on, etc. Now just quickly discussing the 1.5 days study strategy before your exam. Remember, your study strategy of GFRS is similar to the study strategy for financial reporting. So from whichever material you have referred your FR, either our material, institute material, some other professor's material, keep that material handy with you even in your main exams. In the last 2 or 3 GFRS papers, exact same questions from financial reporting have also reappeared. So keep that material handy with you. Do not try to refer new stuff. If you have referred all the GFRS case studies, the material that we have, keep that material also with you. Again, you will be carrying a lot of stuff, but you don't want to regret having studied something and that same thing coming in the exam. You don't want to unnecessarily regret not having it. So take someone with you with all the material, book a coolie maybe, and porter, and take those materials. In the exam, you don't need to spend a lot of time referring to the material. I would definitely recommend that you spend more than 70 to 80% of the exam writing stuff and not referring and writing, because it takes a lot of time doing that. So 70% of the stuff you would be aware, you don't need validation, you will solve and proceed. If you see a sum which is exactly the same, obviously you can refer the institute or our material and solve based on that. If you see something which is new but you know where it is placed in the study material, then go for searching it. If it is completely new, I mean, and this would be extremely rare, but if it is completely new, don't go for a witch hunt on the study material. It will not help in the exam. Keep it for the end, and if you have time, which I suspect, but if you have time, then at the end you can refer that. Otherwise, just focus on solving as if it is your FR paper, and refer only if you are very confident of the broad area in the study material or your notes where a particular item is lying. So in these 1.5 days, I would recommend that you focus a lot of time first on financial instruments, followed by revenue. So focus a lot of time behind that. Try to cover everything. So if you have given group 1 as well, financial reporting would be relatively fresh. If you are giving just group 2, then you will have to refer everything, in the sense that your other standards, the smaller ones, like even the cash flow statements or inventories or impairment, etc., has to be touched upon. If you're doing financial, if you have done your group 1 and then you are coming into group 2, then your ideal study strategy should be, you will try to focus on completion of revenue recognition and financial instruments first. dedicate probably around 4 to 5 hours for each of them, which is a fair chunk of, so combined, if you come back from the exam and if you're relatively fresh to write, to study, then you can start with, let us say, one of the two topics like financial instruments or revenue, which you are comfortable. Then go and refer all the asset-based indices, all of them fairly quickly. So after the asset-based indices, take the other part and then refer the business combination and consolidation aspects. Just a second. Yeah, so I'll just outline it clearly. Let us say you have around 24 hours to study effectively. So after your SCMP exam, let us say around 6 hours. On the next day, the entire day, as much as you can. And on the day before your exam, maybe another 5 odd hours. So let us say you have a good 24 hours effectively, which you can study. Your ideal strategy should be to deploy around 13 to 14 hours, let's say 50 to 60% of your time in quite quickly revising FR first, and then the remaining around 40 odd% of your time in studying GFRS. So the GFRS case studies, maybe there are around 50 odd case studies, whichever material you have referred, even the past institute material or our notes, there would be close to 50 odd case studies. So if I just kind of glance through it, or I just kind of share this broad GFRS study plan. So in your study plan, I would suggest the sequence you can decide what you want to do. But in terms of the study plan, finish the IFRS Ind-AS comparison first, because that is necessary. You should be, because full questions might come on IFRS, so you should be aware where IFRS is different from Ind-AS. Do Ind-AS 109. This totally should take probably around 3 hours, because I want you to devote more time towards Ind-AS 109, and specifically you need to even refer topics like hedge accounting, etc. Then refer, remember, this is not necessarily the ideal sequence, you can change the sequence, but I've just tried to ensure that day 1 and day 2 till around 5 p.m. So that is around 14 odd hours of your preparation, and you should be done with your financial reporting touch-up. And then you refer from your 4 or 5 p.m. onwards of day 2 all the way up to your exams. You can refer GFRS case studies to kind of, once you are clear with your FR concepts and integrities, you can go into the more complex cases and their applications in the GFRS case studies, which you would have already practiced. Remember, you do cases which you have already practiced. Something which is new is not advisable at this stage. So maybe spend around 3 hours for the comparison and Ind-AS 109. For Ind-AS 115, spend 1.5 to at max 2 hours. Then you do the asset-based indices, that is the module 2 of your FR. You have PP, intangibles, impairment, non-current assets held for sale. Probably spend 15 odd minutes, 15 to 20 minutes per standard. Don't, at this stage you would say, यार sir कैसे हो सकता है? हमने FR में तो कितना time लगा था? तभी आपके पास 6 दिन थे. You had 6 days to study. Now you have around 1.5 days. So everything crashes down by around 75%. So you can cover it, especially if you have done FR 15 to 20 minutes. You can kind of just go through the shield that you have, get used to the adjustments. You don't need to necessarily refer each and every question again. You can just glance through the questions. The important ones you can refer. You would have done this in FR, so each and every question referral is not required, but referring the concept from the shield is something which is a must. Then you go to Ind-AS 116. The entire standard I would devote around 1.5 hours, again largely focusing on the concepts and the theory, less on the sums. So remember, it's an open book. You have done FR, you have done those sums at a lot of length, so you don't need to again refer this. Just in case a similar sum comes, you can directly refer that sum. So I would want a lot of your sum referral to be done in the GFRS case studies, which you might not have done at the stage of FR. Here you study your shield properly, so you are clear with the provisions and the important questions that you would be aware, which we have marked or which you would be aware from your past experience. You can just refer those questions and kind of proceed. Then Ind-AS 103, business combination, consolidation, as well as the equity method. Refer the theory properly, refer a few questions which are important, and this will, I think, get done in 2 hours. Remember, you don't need to sit and do the full-fledged consolidation questions over here. The longer questions usually don't come. Then these other important topics like Ind-AS 12, 20, 101, Ind-AS 102. Another 2 hours. Again, we have kept the thumb rule of around 15 to 20 minutes is the barrier max for one topic, apart from the bigger topics. So if I leave alone financial instruments, 115, 116, and business combination and allied, every other topic you should not spend more than 15 to 20 minutes. Even if it is something like Index 12, you will have to target to finish this in 15 to 20 minutes, mainly focusing on understanding the conceptual part and less on the sums part. And then all other remaining indices like Index 1, Index 7, Index 8, 10, 34, everything else that remains, related party, segment reporting, etc., another 3 hours. So you can speed up in the other indices again. So this should ideally get done by around 5 p.m. and then from day 2, 5 p.m. onwards, you will refer to the GFRS case studies, devote an hour or so for the US GAAP difference. Again, while you are doing GFRS case studies, keep the threshold of 15 to 20 minutes per case. It is easy to get lost in that huge pile of information, to spend easily probably an hour behind the case. Not justifiable. Spend 15 to 20 minutes behind each case, specifically focusing on those areas where you have seen in your past, where you have got some pain in understanding. Focus on those parts. The easier parts, the parts which are similar to FR, you can just glance and proceed, or even skip it, and focus on the important parts. This will take care of your preparation, where you balance your FR and your GFRS. In your main exams, ensure that you use the 15 minutes reading time to identify the one question which is easiest, which is the first question that is you are going to start. In all likelihood, this is the first time you're writing an open book exam, so you will be a bit nervous, and hence the easiest question which you can identify is the first question that you will always solve. Do not employ the strategy of doing all MCQs first, then doing all theory for all cases separately. Do not do that. If you have taken a case, read and finish that case first. It will be a fairly thick paper, probably around 25 to 30 sides, and hence to complete that entire reading in 15 minutes is impossible. I mean, you can't read, let's say, 2 pages and understand them in a minute, right? If you have to finish the entire 30 pages in the 15-minute reading time, not possible. Glance through, you would be aware of topics which you are comfortable, not comfortable. Like if there's one full question on transition, Index 101, we'll say, "Arey, theek hai, abhi to padhna hi nahi hai, baad mein dekhte." This is not the first question that I'm going to attempt. Try to find that first question, the sweet spot in those 15 minutes. And probably if you find something which is tricky, which you are of the opinion that you can leave, these two should be your focus areas in those 15 minutes. Start solving with the first question. Time yourself properly. It's a 4-hour paper, so probably you have approximately 1 hour per case. And as a result, time yourself to ensure that you don't overstretch, because it becomes very difficult then to complete the paper. So 1 hour per case is fairly enough. You will need around 8 to 10 minutes of proper reading of a question. While you are doing so, at least in GFRS paper, what happens is most of the times a particular question is linked to a particular paragraph. So your entire case is not linked to one question. A paragraph is linked to a case. So ideally, when you start reading, first quickly glance through the questions. There will be 7 to 8 questions, sometimes 9, but there will be 7 to 8 questions, out of which 5 will be MCQs, 3 or 4 will be descriptive. Spend some time reading the questions first, so you are broadly aware which part of the question is pertaining to an MCQ, which part is pertaining to a descriptive question. And then when you start reading the questions, next to a paragraph, you can kind of make a mental note or a physical note, whatever is feasible, of which part, let's say if the first paragraph is linked to MCQ 1, so 1.1. The second paragraph is linked to the 6th question, so 1.6. So you are clear that which paragraph pertains to what, and then you start solving. Do not really worry a lot about this paper. I'm pretty sure you're going to do exceptionally well. Students in the past have scored 80, 90 as well. So, but even if that is not currently a consideration, remember it's an open book exam. There are 40 marks which is in MCQs. There is no negative marking. You just can't fail over here. You will do exceptionally well. Exemption is on the table. Study really hard. It's a vast subject, but if you have done financial reporting, it kind of narrows down the scope for you. You have done a lot of this while you studied paper 1 just around 7, 8 or 10 days back, and hence a lot of this is going to be really fresh in your head. Focus on getting your concepts clear when you're studying financial reporting, less on the sums. There are close to 800, 900 sums in FR. You can't refer all of them Now focus doing more sums of the GFRS cases that have come, which are slightly more complex. So refer the GFRS case studies from our material, from the institute material, case study digest, whatever you're referring. Keep 15 to 20 minutes threshold for every standard referral, every case referral. You might find it to be challenging, but remember, your goalpost is fixed. You have to complete this in 1.5 days. If you stretch 30, 40, 50 minutes behind one standard, you're going to lose out on something. So keep that mental barrier in your mind. Keep a timer 15 to 20 minutes and you are off. First 2 standards might be difficult, but then you'll get a hang of it. Okay, that should be it. I hope your exam goes really well. Let me know if you have any questions and queries. Wish you all the very best. All the blessings with you. Do well. Good luck. Bye-bye. Take care.